Story 3: Guardians of the Galaxy, Unexpected Protectors and Defenders. The cosmic dust of the war against the Cathar was still settling, yet a new era had already dawned in the galaxy. Humanity, once a distant anomaly observed with perplexity and apprehension, was now the central force that had turned the tide. Our madness, which seemed so self-destructive and illogical, proved to be the most potent weapon against the cold predictability of tyrants. The observers, who had recruited us out of desperation, now watched us with a mix of reluctant respect and a silent awe. The universe wasn't just changing. It was being redefined by human unpredictability. The new galactic order, respect, awe, and human ascension. The victory over the Cathar was decisive, but not in any way that any galactic civilization expected. There was no formal surrender or treaty signed at a negotiation table. There was a mass Cathar collapse, a disintegration of their military and social logic in the face of an enemy that simply didn't fit their calculations. Where they expected patterns, they found chaos. Where they sought order, they saw uncontrollable fury. Humanity's child's play proved to be such a profound nightmare that the Cathar, for the first time in their history, retreated in despair, their logical minds incapable of processing the sheer insanity of human tactics. With the Cathar in chaotic retreat, the Gly's Council found itself in a position of power once again, but with a new and powerful piece on the board: humanity. Debates were intense. Some races feared human unpredictability more than the Cathar's tyranny. If they are capable of such chaos against an external enemy, argued a representative of the cautious XYLA species, what would they do if they decided to turn their fury against their own allies, or against more peaceful races? However, the gratitude of the observers and many other races that had been on the brink of annihilation prevailed. Humanity showed no interest in territorial conquest or in imposing its own order on others. Our interest seemed to be, surprisingly, freedom of choice and the protection of the vulnerable. First analyst Xylar, who had been humanity's primary advocate, presented the new thesis to the Council: they do not seek to dominate. They seek to balance. Their madness is a force that can be directed, a weapon against those who seek uniformity through oppression. Thus, humanity was invited to join the Galactic Council, not as a lesser race to be tutored, but as a full member and, ironically, as the new force of deterrence and protection. We accepted, not with pompousness, but with a strange mixture of pride, pragmatism, and a good dose of humor. To the galaxy, we were the new watchdogs, the ones who were a bit mad, but who ensured no one else dared disturb the peace. Human diplomacy, bizarreness and efficacy. Our ascension to the role of protectors was not without its peculiarities. Human diplomacy within the Council was, for the observers, as confusing as our war tactics. The direct approach: if a peaceful race reported a threat from a minor tyrant, humanity didn't send a negotiation fleet or an emissary with complex protocols. We sent a single ship, often with a calm-faced human ambassador, but one whose reputation preceded them by 1,000 chaotic battles. The message was simple: you have X cycles to cease your hostilities. If not, humanity will come, and you won't like what you see. This approach, devoid of euphemisms or formalities, was shocking to races accustomed to millennia of convoluted negotiations. But it worked. The mere human factor in the equation was often enough for the threat to withdraw. Benevolent terror. For the Glesians, who operated based on data and probabilities, the effectiveness of the human threat was a mystery. They saw minor tyrants retreat not out of fear of a calculated defeat, but out of an irrational fear of the unpredictability that humanity represented. Xylar observed, they do not fear our strength, they fear our lack of logic. They fear what we would do, not what we could do. That is the essence of the terror we inspire. Madness in preservation. Our approach to protecting vulnerable races also bore traces of insanity. If a civilization was in imminent danger of environmental or social collapse, humans didn't just offer technology. They might send teams of specialists who implemented radical and rapid solutions, sometimes involving social engineering that mixed advanced technology with techniques the observers would consider primitive, such as using competitive games to encourage cooperation or introducing memes to shift cultural norms. This cultural intervention was controversial, but often remarkably successful in reversing civilizational decline. The legacy of Voyager, from invitation to legend. The Voyager probe, which once was an innocent invitation from a peaceful world, was now seen as the first warning of the arrival of the galaxy's most chaotic, yet effective, race. It became a legendary artifact in the Council, a reminder of how galactic order was shaken and, paradoxically, saved by something it couldn't comprehend. The human paradox in the Council. Humanity became the most paradoxical race in the Council. We were the protectors who argued in diplomatic discussions about which football team had the best attack. We were the defenders of peace who showed horror films as examples of emotional engineering. We were the guardians of the vulnerable who still couldn't solve all our own internal problems on Earth. This duality, this controlled madness, was what made us unique and, ironically, so indispensable. A new cosmic mission. Our mission was no longer merely to defend. It became a mission of preserving diversity. We understood that the galaxy needed its intrinsic chaos, its differences. And humanity, with its own chaotic nature, was perfectly suited to protect this diversity against the oppressive uniformity of tyrants. We became the guardians of the freedom to be different, to be imperfect, to be alive. Xylar's respect. First analyst Xylar, who dedicated his existence to understanding humanity, wrote a new treatise on the human factor. He concluded that, although humanity operated outside all Galesian logic, it possessed an emotional coherence that drove it. They are not chaotic out of malice, but from a relentless pursuit of meaning, of overcoming, of connection, he recorded. Their capacity for self-sacrifice for an abstraction like freedom or camaraderie is their greatest strength, and their greatest weakness. But, for the galaxy, this weakness was an unbreakable shield. And so, humanity's saga in the cosmos continued. We were not the perfect heroes of ancient legends, but we were the heroes the galaxy needed. Chaotic, unpredictable, and gloriously, terrifyingly, human. Voyager, which once departed in silence, was now the symbol of a war cry that echoed across the Milky Way. Don't mess with humanity. You might regret it.